After nailing a good angle for our HDRI and finding the right HDRI for that matter, we can try adjusting its brightness or exposure and its white balance. I'm pressing Ctrl H for the light path node to collapse it to the only input we are using at the moment. And by the way, we still have our spherical object in the viewport, so we can rotate that instead of tweaking the Y rotation in the mapping node. We can scale that as well if you wish. As for the exposure, one of the ways to tweak it globally at that stage would be to adjust the exposure slider within the color management tab. Think of it as applying the neutral density filter on the camera. Then one of the quite fundamental choices would be to choose the base look or the base contrast. As a rule of thumb, I find it much easier to stick to the medium contrast at that point. It makes the whole thing much more manageable. As for the global exposure, I will bring it down considerably to something like -2 in the color management tab to make it a lot gloomier. And right after, I will plug in the mix node in our chain to be able to adjust the temperature or the color balance of the light emitted by the environment. The mix node should be multiplied and the color adjusted to liking. What I want to do is swivel the room tone towards the warmer part of the spectrum, as if to change the time of day in some sense. It is similar to tweaking the white balance in real cameras. Hopefully it will make it look more of a golden hour situation rather than a broad daylight. Now we need to extend the same treatment to our backdrop and tweak it to your liking, the mix factor I mean. As we have the light path split, it's completely normal to have slightly different values within the mix factors. I think we can make the color slightly more saturated, slightly more peachy. There is certainly room for that. You can check before and after by pressing M to mute and unmute the nodes, and I think that looks good. I enjoyed the darker and warmer ambience of our canvas light layer with the evening undertones. While not affecting the light sources directly, depth of field still plays an important role in how light gets transported through the lens to the sensor. So let's take a moment to click on the camera border to select it, jump over to the camera settings, and let's see what we have here. It's a quite zoomed in lens at 120mm. We just need to tick the depth of field checkbox, select the focus object or the distance for that matter. We already have placed the empty object serving as our focal point. So the f-stop value controls the depth of field. The lower the f-stop, the blurrier the background as a rule of thumb, if the focal point is our subject. I will go with a pretty wide open aperture with a f-stop of 1, which offers just enough separation but not too crazy on the blur. As for the vertical squeeze of our out-focus elements to bring it closer to an anamorphic lens look, I'll go all the way to 2 in the ratio slider, which means yes when translated from sliderian. Make it anamorphic. Here is a quick comparison of different aperture ratios within the camera settings. The aperture ratio of 1 imitates good old spherical lenses, the uniform bokeh circles, all that jazz. The aperture ratio of 2 imitates an anamorphic lens with a vertical squeeze of out-of-focus elements. Here is the creamy bokeh of the wide open lens, which is spherical. And this is its anamorphic counterpart. This effect can be more or less evident depending on the scene content. The brighter out-of-focus glints will show off the anamorphic squeeze in a more impressive way, definitely. But in any case, this adds a cinematic touch to the image, as this type of bokeh is often associated with a certain look, which is quite common in the cinema world, and we are accustomed to associate it with films. In films, it's also accompanied by a widescreen aspect ratio and a very characteristic lens flare due to technical reasons. We will touch on it a bit later. For now, let's double down on the fact that we pay tribute to cinema lenses and that special look. We should be good, the blur isn't too crazy, just some separation, which is always good. Do we still want to give one more try to scaling or spinning our light sphere? Or was it good? What I like about starting with HDRIs is happy lighting accidents like having these beautiful windows and natural ambience to work with. It could take some time to find the right content, but it is worth it. Oh, look at this part. A sunbeam out of nowhere. Nice. At the same time, I like a darker room tone and no hot spots from the front side, effectively limiting the intensity that otherwise would have bounced back straight on our robo face. That is some pretty nice lighting stuff right out of the box. Next, we can try to multiply these ideas that we already have here with the help of the artificial light sources, like maintaining the neutral room tone, but at the same time getting a proper main light going, then wrapping some light around in the form of the rim lights or the hair lights. After that, filling in the shadows and all that jazz. It is much easier to do all of that with a decent source motivating these lighting decisions though.